The dogs are in the enclosed pool area, and the garage side door is open. Here we go. I'm Charles Richter with the retro review of WWE Vengeance 2007 Night of Champions, taking place on June 24, 2007, and if that particular date gives you a nasty feeling in the pit of your stomach, yeah, this is the ill-fated pay-per-view that was taking place while Chris Benoit was taking care of his family, literally tying up his wife in a phone call and putting his son to sleep, and he didn't want to wait for his life to be over. That goddamn weight machine. Fucking hell, we're always going to wonder what could have been with WWE in 2007 and really what could have been had all that stuff not happened in the Benoit household in Fayetteville, Georgia, miles and miles and miles away from the Toyota Center in Houston, Texas, 15,000 fans, and boy, if you think those are the only jokes I'm going to be making, nope, that's pretty much how I cope, is by making bad jokes. Let me know your thoughts on this event in the comments, please, because various people have told me, and I don't blame them, that this event and the Benoit tragedy, the tragedy is about, in air quotes there, that caused them to not watch wrestling. Wrestling in general, at least American wrestling, and some just turned off of wrestling completely. And the fallout was absolutely batshit insane. Showing just how vicious Benoit was, right frame of mind or not right frame of mind, whatever. I've talked about this at length in other videos. I've cracked jokes, because again, it's how I cope. But the bottom line is 2 other people died during that weekend. Nancy one day, Daniel the next day, and then Chris, who still, according to the Dark Side of the Ring 2-parter, was planning to possibly go to the pay-per-view. Could you imagine if Benoit had committed these atrocities, gone to that pay-per-view, wrestled CM Punk, and then the news had come out that he had done that? That might have been something WWE was unable to come back from. That might have actually just crippled the goddamn company. It wouldn't have been the first time that Vince McMahon associated with a murder. More on that here in a little bit, but this event was a real fucking kicker, because then they got serious about their drug policy and their, and taking care of talents. Air quotes. I'm not saying they don't take care of talents, and I'm not saying they get better, but you think about Eddie Guerrero. In November of 2005, a death that still haunts me to this day, because I loved Eddie. And Benoit, yeah, he was so close to getting that sponsorship deal with Tap Out, but he decided to take it literally and try to tap out his family. Not realizing it's just a brand, he didn't actually have to take the phrase seriously. Again, dark humor. Speaking of dark humor, here's a dark match. Super Crazy versus Carlito. I met Super Crazy at multiple indie shows. Great guy. Can still move fantastically. I miss unique pay-per-view sets. It's had Roman columns and curtains and stuff like that. It kind of reminded me a bit of the Royal Rumble 2006 set. The red hot days of summer are upon us. Oh, JR didn't realize how right he was. So JR and King were calling the Raw action. JBL and Cole were calling SmackDown action. And then Joey Styles and Taz called the ECW action, the lone bit of ECW action that there was. Justin Roberts introduces Mike Rotunda and Barry Windham, the former U.S. Express, former 2-time tag team champions. Before Barry Windham left, he says, nope, I don't want to do this shit. I want to go somewhere else. So, Cade Murdoch, Lance Cade and Trevor Murdoch versus the Hardys, World Tag Team Championship match. Eerie that Lance Cade would pass away within 3 years of this. Or actually, I'm trying to think, maybe it was a little over 3 years, but it's just eerie that he was the youngest one out of anybody here, and he passed away. Don't do drugs, kids. Don't do drugs. So, they always worked well together. This was quick, though. They focused on Matt's leg. Jeff got the hot tag. There was a push off the top, and then a spinebuster bomb. 1, 2, 3. And Cade and Murdoch retained the tag team championships. There's not going to be a ton of analysis of some of these matches, because it's just so weird and eerie, and just to think of what could have been going on here, but it was a fine opener, and there were times the crowd was really, really energetic, and then there were times they were quieter than the Benoit household after June 25th, 2007. He'll be backstage with Booker and Sharmell, both Hall of Famers. Only one deserves to be a Hall of Famer. I'm sticking with that, and that's nothing against Sharmell. So, Night of Champions flashbacks. Eddie beating Brock, because this is when WWE was a little bit upset at the Beast Bork Laser, because of him leaving, trying out in the NFL, and then wrestling for New Japan. and not being the easiest to work with in New Japan. Big shock there. Brock, if motivated in New Japan, would have been pretty fun to see. So, we then get, and so I miss A to this day, Chavo Guerrero taking on Jimmy Wang Yang. Yeehaw! For the Cruiserweight Championship, and the crowd goes mild. Good God, you could have heard a pin drop there. If the dogs were in the enclosed pool area of the arena, you would have been able to hear them during this. They got up a little bit for some of the near falls, but nobody cared. Nobody cared. Neighborhoods in Fayetteville were louder than this, and they were just in the Deathly Hallows, so to speak. So, JR and King talk about Vince and the limo explosion. Oh, by the way, yeah, there was a frog splash for 3, because Chavo Guerrero was the champion, and really nobody cared about Chavo Guerrero. Even though he's fine in the ring, nobody cared. Nobody cared. They had ground cruiserweights, they really made it pointless. So, yeah, they talk about the Vince limo explosion, because while all this real-life stuff's going on, and WWE is not aware of these details, and they would find out later, doing the Benoit tribute, we see footage. And, you know, Vince, how far would this have gone with Vince? Apparently, it was rumored that Mr. Kennedy was going to get a big push out of this. By the way, the former disgraced president, Donald Trump, actually believed that this was, I mean, he wasn't president at the time. Who would have been stupid enough to vote for him? Oh, right, idiots. He believed this. He believed this was real and actually called Vince. Because he's a fucking moron. That was hilarious to me. Anyway, so the crowd was saying na 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 hey goodbye after the footage played, and then Todd Gresham that I wrote down as, or maybe it is Gresham, that I wrote down as Todd Pettengill because I was thinking of somebody that had more personality. He was talking to Lashley, and Lashley says, well, he would want to see Vince, here so he could see him become WWE champion. Then Taz and Joey Styles talk about the ECW title. We see footage of the greatest ECW champion, Taz. And I will say that Taz, in his 8-month reign, was a pretty goddamn good champion. I don't know if he's the greatest ever, but he was probably one of the most memorable. So, CM Punk. Whatever happened to CM Punk? Whatever happened to him? And after this, what the fuck did he do? He toiled around everything. I think 3-time world champion. 434 days as WWE champion. Oh, yeah, right. And now he was tearing it up and literally tearing his foot up as of now in AEW. This is supposed to be Punk versus Benoit, but Chris was, again, taking care of his family. They had food poisoning. Well, they felt like they probably would have rather had food poisoning after what he did to them. Punk versus Johnny Nitro, the ECW title match. The crowd was chanting, "We want Benoit." Ooh! Oof! Talk about things that have aged like a fine milk left on Neptune. And if you can get milk to Neptune, you probably should come up with better ways to explore deep space. No one cared. No one fucking cared. This was eerie. You have to wonder what would have happened if Benoit again had come to the show. Even if he hadn't done any of that stuff and wrestled CM Punk, it would have been weird. And it would have been even weirder if he'd killed his family and then gone to the pay-per-view. Those what-ifs are just bouncing around in my head. Nitro wins with a swinging neckbreaker off the ropes. The crowd was flat. As flat as that pillow over Daniel Benoit's face. Moving on. Clips of the Mania 12 Iron Man match. I just can't really cover that match because it's just so fucking freaky. So, then we get Orton telling Mick to be careful tonight because this is when Orton was on the ascent, taking out various people like RVD and Shawn Michaels, giving them concussions. As when RVD decided to leave because he's like, you know what, fuck it, I don't want to be here. And I don't blame RVD. Would have preferred if he hadn't put Katie fucking Forbes on our goddamn television because nobody really wanted to see that, but nevertheless. Clips of Steamboat beating Savage. They bring Steamboat out. And here's Santino to absolutely no reaction because this is before Santino had the Cobra, had the weird heel persona, and then the Cobra, the honkometer, all that stuff and everything that he tried to make entertaining until he decided to knock trans people for no reason. Hopefully his daughter is better than he is. She won't have to aim high. But Santino basically gets no reaction, and then the Samoan bulldozer Umanga, as Regal said, and I can't unhear that. IC title match, the crowd loved Umanga, and he wouldn't break on 5 in the corner, so the ref DQ'd him. The crowd booed, and then beat the shit out of Santino. Umaga did, not the crowd. I would have liked to have seen the crowd beat the shit out of Santino. We would have been saved a whole lot of bad shit if Santino had not been around in wrestling after this, or in general. But the crowd's chanting one more time, and he has the Samoan spike out. He did the splash, he did the thing. Here's Maria to the biggest pop of the goddamn thing besides Umanga. And then Cole and JBL talk about the limo explosion. We see footage of Daniel Beck, who's the lead investigator. Again, this all got dropped, like, because of the Benoit stuff. So, then, Moron Raw Vince McMahon Memorial Service. About that. Alright, Magnum TA, former U.S. champion. Real shame what happened to him. It is a real shame. MVP versus Flair, U.S. title match. So, commentary mentions the history of the U.S. Championship. Just fine enough. We had a sleeper hold for about 15 years of this 7.5-minute match. And Playmaker 1, 2, 3. And then Flair would do the thing where he would then have to win matches. Or otherwise, if the next match he lost, he'd have to retire. And then Todd interviews Cena. He's interrupted by Edge. And there's two champions here. And Edge talks about being vicious, being capable of vicious things because Cena goaded him. About like, oh, you wouldn't have anything to do with that. He says, I'm capable of vicious, vile things. And then suddenly the lead investigator is just there. Hi, I'm drinking my coffee. Rick Martel and Tony Garea are at ringside. Why? Because, well, they're former tag team champions. Well, no. Actually, where Martel? I know Garea was. Garea and Martel. God, my history is sometimes a little bit jumbled. Martel, by the way, was in the best shape there. Deuce and Domino, all about cool. Remember Deuce and Domino? Remember how that gimmick worked for about 3 weeks? And then they were champions. They had lost to London and Kendrick when they should have won, and then nobody cared. And nobody probably would have cared anyway had they won. But it's Deuce and Domino with Cherry in an open challenge. Who's going to face them? Will it be Martel and Tony Garea that they were knocking for no goddamn reason? Nope. Sergeant Slaughter and renowned murderer Jimmy Snuka. Fuck Jimmy Snuka. I'm glad he's dead. I hope he's burned in hell for what he did. See, this is why Vince had a real-life murder going on outside of his company, outside the confines of this building. But that's okay. He would always, associate with murderers, like when he paid out the police chief so Jimmy Snuka could continue to wrestle for him. That ended up being a stupid investment because, sure, you had the Don Morocco-Jimmy Snuka feud. And then Snuka's drug issues took hold, and oh, darn, Snuka had issues and had money issues and everything. It's okay, he took a fucking life, so I don't really fucking care. Man, what was 2007 was what I wrote down. This was bad. And all due respect to Slaughter, none to Snuka, because I'm glad he's burned in hell for what he did. But a crossbody got reversed for 3, and then Martel and Garea ran in to help with the beatdown of the tag champs. I don't fucking know. Harley Race was mentioned, and he's in the front row. And then Batista took on Edge in the last chance match for the WWE World Heavyweight Championship. Well, another last chance match, was pretty much over in Fayetteville. Whew! Some 850 miles away. Or however far it is, I don't fucking know. It was good as expected, lots of submission work. Edge got himself DQ'd on a low blow. And then Teddy Long shows up. Hold on a minute, playa. You're going to go one-on-one with The Undertaker. Except Undertaker was injured, so Teddy had to rectify that. I kid, of course. Says, hey, Edge, I'm restarting this match. You get DQ'd? Well, you're fucked. Then Batista ended up hitting a Batista bomb outside a little bit later. Couldn't get Edge back in because Edge apparently went dead weight and weighed 5,000 pounds. And Edge got rolled in the ring, but Batista couldn't get in the ring. So he lost. He lost his last chance, and then Edge was injured. Had to give up the championship. And then the Great Khali became World Heavyweight Champion. Still not as Jinder becoming champion. But nevertheless. Alright, so we then see footage of November 28, 1985, where Fabulous Moolah as the Spider Lady beat Wendy Richter for the WWE Women's Championship. Fuck the Fabulous Moolah. I'm glad she's dead, and she deserves to have her career totally shat on. I don't care how great she was or whatever. Oh, we don't know what happened, according to some people in the Dark Side of the Ring episode. Enough stories have come out about all the shit that she did and the way she tortured women. So you know what? Fuck those goddamn stupid bitches for defending her. So, Melina took on Candice Michelle. Behold, the death slot. Nothing against the women. It was for the women's championship, by the way, but they put him in the death slot. Hey, Candice had improved in the ring by this point and won. And then had a few months as champion. Candice was never going to be great in the ring, but she got to where she was more than passable, especially for how they were featuring the women by that point. She got her moment in the sun. Then unfortunately injuries took hold. It was like a broken collarbone and other stuff and everything, and she couldn't. She never attained that stuff after facing off against, I believe it was Beth Phoenix, and suffered that broken collarbone. And unfortunately, by the time she came back, just injuries had piled up. But she got her chance to be champion, and that's a good thing. So, Justin Roberts mentions all this stuff about JBL to kill time. Video package on all 5 guys in the main event, and the entrances took about 8 minutes. We had 19 minutes once the video package started, by the way. And in a 5-pack challenge, Cena versus Lashley versus Booker versus Orton versus Mick Foley. Mick Foley back in the WWE ring in 2007 for unknown reasons. I've never actually quite figured out why Foley came back besides money. It was Bedlam and Madness. Lashley dived on everybody. Everybody hit finishers, and Cena hit the FU 1, 2, 3. That's really about it. That was it. There's your Vengeance 2007 pay-per-view review. Really, really bizarre. Very, very bizarre. It just fucking freaky and eerie. It's not as eerie as Over the Edge, because we didn't know until after the fact what had actually happened. Still fucking eerie. You have to wonder what if. What if Benoit hadn't, been a vicious murderer and killed his family? What if? What would have happened? How far would the limo explosion thing have gone? Could we maybe have actually put one of Vince's friends in the limo? And never mind. Enough of that. Don't want to get in trouble. Agree, disagree, what I said? Like, share, subscribe, Twitter handle in the description. I'm John Ritlin. I'll see you soon.